It's funny, isn't it? Like interviews and I mean life in general, but actually understanding yourself and being able to articulate that is what actually allows you to go forward. Because someone says to you, "What are you good at?" It's hard to actually to think about it and go, what am I good at? And you just start throwing stuff out. Whereas to actually sit down, take some time, do something like Strength Finders to go, right, these are the things that I'm really good at. These are the things I'm okay at. These are the things that I need to, work on.
Yep.
It really does help you to not box yourself at all, but to articulate yourself and go, right, this is where I can actually move forward from. It's a bit like that old analogy of, sitting down and sharpening your axe before you start cutting down trees, The guy who gets into the tree straight away compared to the guy who sits down and spends half an hour sharpening will actually end up cutting down more trees in the long run, So I think taking some time away from work, away from your professional life to do something like this and invest in yourself is what we talk about at Help My Wealth all the time. Hello and welcome to the Help My Wealth podcast, Money Rules or Money Rules. Here at Help My Wealth, we are all about empowering financial success in our community of listeners. We hope you find today's topic both informative and helpful.
Hello and welcome to Help My Wealth, Money Rules or Money Rules podcast. Tonight, I'm your host, Hamish Ferguson, and I'm joined by Steve Logan. How are you, Steve?
Thank you, Hamish. Yes, I'm well.
Yeah, thank you. And tonight we've got a great guest, Murray. Well, that's interesting saying a guest, Murray guest.
Yes.
There we go, yes. Murray is a Gallup Coach. That's the correct terminology.
Yep.
All right. So actually just quickly, because we hear this word CliftonStrengths test, but then Gallup. So we might come back to that one and you might be able to help us understand where those two words sort of play in over time.
100%.
All right.
Yep.
So Murray's had lots of management and leadership roles, business development roles over the years, for about 15 to 20 years. Last 5 to 7 years, you've acted as a consultant. Is that right?
Nearly 10.
Nearly 10 years.
Nearly 10 years,
So note to self, the website might need to be updated at some point.
Updated.
All right. So, and I'm sure the tally as well as, so at the time on the website it said 4,000 people. So it's probably more like 5,000 or 6,000 people now.
We're over 5,000.
Yep. Over 5,000 people have been helped to understand the power of, harnessing their strengths. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So thanks for coming tonight, Murray.
Thank you, Hamish, and thank you, Stephen. Looking forward to the chat. I love what you do, and I'm really looking forward to talking about money as well, which might seem funny for some people, but I think it's a really important topic to talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I guess it's something that we can't really get away from too easily, is it?
That's right. We need it.
So Murray, I guess if we start off tonight, like one of the things, so this podcast is all about trying to help people, I guess, understand how money fits into their lives, their journey with money, what they know, sometimes what they don't know. And I guess for most of us, this journey starts fairly early in life with our family, how we grew up. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about your journey as a child, maybe something around your parents and how money sort of, your memories of how money fitted into life?
So with the work I do with organisations, and we do a lot around the language we use and how that can shape the culture. And so when I was thinking about this, I thought about some of the words my mum used when I was growing up around money. And I still remember it's one of those clear memories. I don't know what age, but what she said to me was, we only had just enough. And that just enough. And even she explained one time she would go and buy the groceries, but she didn't have enough money to buy a milkshake. I don't know why a milkshake, but that was the thing maybe in the 70s when I was growing up. But then the build on that was just enough. And so I feel like that was like that one of those childhood things that's stuck with me. The other thing, of course, was you couldn't leave the table unless you've eaten everything off your plate, and that still plagues me now. And so I wonder there's something there about while you've got it, you've got to, have it. So then the just enough, I think about even how maybe subtlety or subconsciously it drives me to push myself so far, just enough. And I think there's sometimes some glass ceilings around my own development and my business around just enough. And so I feel like I've shifted that in the last few years through some understanding of that and changing that. And I think the thing that we can't lose sight of is my mum did not mean bad intent, and parents don't mean bad intent, but there's those messages there around that. And so it's something that then, I have 3 children now, and thinking about what messages I give them around money. And I think back when we were growing up, it was you can't talk about money, politics and religion. And I think there are things that we do need to talk about with our children in a constructive way. And so far from perfect, but I want to make it safe to talk about those things, and particularly around money, and how that we're making more informed and valuable decisions for the future. Yeah. So the just enough, it's interesting though, because it comes up for money, but then I think in other things, as I said, like my development, but even how I might work out. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do some push-ups. I do just enough that I need to do. Clearly, if you can see the video, they're not working. But it's
your GP may have a comment on that. Yeah. But it's interesting that you say, because I had exactly the same experience with my parents. If you ever talk about money, it was always there's not enough, or there's just enough, or whatever else. And one of the things that I did with my kids was to really try and change that wording to being it's not in the budget, to try and get them to understand that no, we've got money. From a world perspective, we're in the top 1%. From an Australian perspective, we're doing fine. We're not the richest, we're not the poorest. It's okay, but it's about going. We're not going to buy that milkshake because it's not part of the budget. We've got other things that we want to purchase, and so really getting them to actually see that concept.
I like that language too, because I think then there's a link to everyone thinking about that cash flow.
Yes,
and so. My 21-year-old son, he's got a part-time job. Money comes in, money goes out. Where's that money going out to? I'm sure a whole range of things. You've got to look fashionable at 21. Yeah. But
Uber Eats.
Plenty of that based on what I see. But how's he thinking about it? Is that in his budget? When he wants to achieve A, B or C or have X, Y and Z, how does that fit in with the budget? So I really like that framing up of it, yeah.
So from a family's perspective, so you've talked about your mum, but what occupations were you exposed to? Like what did mum and dad do when you were growing up?
So my dad was a mechanical fitter at an underground mine, not far from here, and he retired early from work due to hurting his back. And so unfortunately for him, that was a journey of prescription drugs. And I've unfortunately said to some people, back in the 80s, his GP was like a drug dealer. So the rules we have now around what you can and can't have are much, much better. And Dad passed away 6 years ago, and what led to his ill health was that I guess that journey of dealing with that pain and what he was having. Mum and Dad did get divorced in the mid-80s, and Mum worked as a medical receptionist. And I remember the pride of her having that as a job, from having a job when she was younger to being a stay-at-home mum and then moving back into the workforce. And, I think having a job at any stage gives you that self-importance of worth, or that self-worth, which was great. But, not careers that, we're not rolling around in cash on the lounge room floor. Like there's, again, just enough that was there. But I think what was really being imparted through a bit of that, which is good, I'm proud to say, is I have 3 brothers. So Mum had 4 boys. She has plenty of grey hair. But all of us, I'm proud to say, have gone on to do quite well and achieve something, because I think that has driven us to go, okay, what can we do? How can we go out into the world and achieve what we want to? I think the thing that I do appreciate from my dad and that generation, which is probably, I think, similar to your parents, is you study, you work, you retire, you die. And geez, that does not sound exciting at all. And I think now there's, and in the last number of decades, so many variations of what that can look like. Instead of you work for someone or run your own business, now you might be a consultant, you might be a contractor, you might work part-time, you might have flexible. And of course, obviously now we have working from home in different ways. And then as you head towards retirement, what's the setup in your life that meets your lifestyle? I don't look forward to a time where I go, that's it, no more work. It's, what's the transition look like where I'm still doing a version of what I do now into the future because I love what I do.
It is one of those interesting things, isn't it, when someone retires and they do go from that, working every day, doing it, and they have this thing of, I'm going to get to X amount of age, whatever it is, I'm going to retire. Yeah. And they sit and watch TV all day and do nothing, and they're bored. And it's interesting to see how fast they start going, I don't know if this is the right move for me. I think I've had a couple of people that I know that retired that actually came back from retirement, because they were like, this is just not fun at all. And I think more and more people are having that idea now of going, hang on, I don't have to retire. I can actually look at, what do I want to do? What would I like doing in my 60s, in my 70s, in my 80s, whatever else, what can I do with that at that time?
And I think when you think about well-being and living a healthy life and having purpose in your life, and what's that purpose? And if my purpose was my job and that's what that attachment was, and no longer have that, there's such an unfortunate big impact then on well-being, mental health, emotional well-being, because I have lost my purpose.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring you back a bit because we were talking about you as a child. All right. So
I'm now
at retirement.
So do you remember your first job?
100%.
Yeah.
Oh, which one?
No?
The first.
The first.
Well, the first one where I got money.
Right, okay, that's a very good question. Yes, so I could have qualified that. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is, do you remember money starting to come directly to you, all right, and having to think about, this is what these coins and notes look like, and how that sort of started to change who you were?
Well, I think for me then it was like, maybe, I don't know about you two, but I worked at McDonald's in the 80s and I earned something like $3 something an hour. And but like freedom, I can make choices, I can do stuff, I can waste it on things, which is, I got right into record collecting in the 80s, and I'm thinking vinyl, these are going to be worth lots of money. So, In Excess and Midnight Oil and a bit of Cold Chisel, and so Australian.
Do you still have them?
I do have them.
Oh, well, they probably are worth a bit of money now.
I think a lot of them dropped in value and started to come up again. But I remember for me that sense of freedom and choice. And going back to what does it mean as a parent, thinking about, okay, I can see some of the choices the kids make, and you learn from those choices and mistakes and things you do. I know one of my kids, I won't say it because they do listen back, but it's like, how many clothes do you need? Like, really? But it's that, I think there's a point where he has got to and thinking, okay, I can dial that back a bit so I make better choices. And I went through that definitely, I think, through my teenage years. But that sense of freedom was so wonderful. Yeah.
Well, at least at McDonald's, I mean, that's good. That's a job now that kids also are still going to do. I know that my first job paid was probably illegal now. So I was working for Woolworths, but as a trolley boy, but it was downstairs in an undercar garage, and they used to they'd charge you $1 to take the trolley, and if you bought the ticket back to me, I would give you $1. But here I was at like 15 years old, sitting in a smoke-filled cabin with a couple of $100 in coins.
Yeah, wow.
On my lap, as people would come and hand me money. And then if I wanted to make, extra money, I would literally go around and collect trolleys with the tokens, and then that was mine. But I can't imagine that anyone would put a 15-year-old downstairs in a car park filled with smoke with a couple $100 worth of coins, just sitting there every day.
Absolutely. Okay, so moving into your 20s, all right. So, and if I think about where you are now. Possibly, what was that first time where you started to go, okay, I enjoy this idea of helping people understand who they are?
Yeah, thank you. So through my 20s into my 30s, I worked for Master Foods for 11 years. So went through a number of roles of managing teams. And I loved the impact that made, that ripple effect in people's lives, helping them grow, helping them develop, and the conversations with people that were also my peers at the time, and helping them grow, and impact that made. My role at the time was in quality assurance, so a lot around the quality of the products and food, and which I loved, and they were a great company to work for. They're one of the largest family-owned businesses in the world, as part of Mars Incorporated. 100,000 employees. Yeah, you're actually known as an associate, not an employee. Everyone's an associate. It's a part of the language, which is powerful. But for me, it was that sense of, okay, how can I make a difference in someone's life, help them grow, help them develop, particularly people that, that were in my teams. There's one lady that was in my team, and I remember we had some of those challenging conversations that you have sometimes, help someone grow, develop, and maybe align in what we're trying to achieve. And then when I left, I was like, I feel like I could have done some of that better, which we always, I think, reflect on at times. And then I bumped into her working at a cafe only like 5 years ago, and she started, crying, reached over the counter, gave me a hug, and I was like, maybe it did land. Maybe it wasn't. I felt much better.
That's great. I'm a little bit stuck, all right, because when you talk about quality assurance, the only quality assurance role I've ever had was actually at McDonald's as a manager, because you had to try the hamburgers every day to make sure that they were all right. But I'm thinking about tomato sauce. And,
people eat it every day.
Right.
Multiple people every time. Like, there's lots of
it out.
Yeah, I knew a guy who was a custard taster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember which company he worked for, but literally he sat there every day tasting custard going, yep, that batch is okay.
Well, we still have these times where my wife will open up something in the fridge and she goes, is this okay? And she jams it in my face. And I'm like, yeah, no, that one goes in the bin. Like, I can still pick up there.
We're not selling that one.
Yeah, okay. So Master Foods, quality assurance, but you still had teams of people around you.
Yep,
yes.
Yeah.
I get this impression that you're telling the tomato sauce guy to have more tomato sauce, or So what was the size of the team, and how did you?
Yeah, so small team. So a team of like 5 people.
Yep.
I think the thing too, the culture at Master Foods, we have an open office, so similar to your office, but there's a couple of key things in the office there. No cupboard, no bookcase, no filing cabinet can be taller than a desk, and 150 people in a room. So you can see everyone, you can eyeball everyone. So there's definitely a cultural buzz there. So there was the coaching there, but then there's a conversation with other people. And being in a quality assurance role, I'm interacting with manufacturing, with marketing, with customer service. So there's all of that. The other part is, thankfully, in my own development there, I got to do some really good courses. And one of those was a high-performance coaching course, which people from different businesses under the Master Foods banner got to attend, and so got to interact and meet with them. And so jumping ahead, when my position was made redundant, I contacted the company that ran that and said, hey, I was that loud guy on that course. Can I have a job? And when I look back on my career from even starting at Master Foods till now, it was when someone looked at me and went, we'll give this guy a try. When you have that supporter. And I was so glad that Paul Macklin, who owned that training company, said, okay, come for a walk. Went for a coaching walk and asked me a bunch of questions and said, look, I'll give you a chance. And I wouldn't be sitting here today if that didn't happen, because he gave me a chance. He saw something in me. And I think there's something powerful in that when we see something in somebody and we give them that opportunity, and when someone's giving us that opportunity, that we take that on board. Even going back in time, when I went for the role at Master Foods, they were looking for electricians, mechanics, and food technologists. I'd studied biology, but Jeff, the shift manager, said, we'll give you a chance. There's something that you've got. And so thankfully, I've had a couple of those occasions, which has led me to then go, right, someone's given me a chance. I need to step up. How can I repay their faith in that opportunity, which has led me to where we are now.
Okay, all right. So, so Master Foods, you were there for, it sounds like a long time, and it was a good experience for you. Yeah. Okay. All right. So, and so moving forward now, when did you first get that glimpse or that exposure to Gallup or the CliftonStrengths system?
Yeah, so after Master Foods and that training company, I did work at an aluminium smelter where I managed the training for 1,000 people. While we were there, I rolled out a training course from another training provider. I ended up working for them for a couple of years. And I remember when I joined that company, they said, we do this strengths thing. Can you complete this assessment? And I did the assessment, which is the CliftonStrengths assessment. And I got my top 5. And I was like, wow, this makes sense. This connects with me. I understand my top 5. And so this was in 2012. And I also love the idea of being strengths-based. So with the strengths-based approach, you want to know your strengths, the strengths of each other, how they help, how they can hinder, but also embrace a strengths-based approach, which is all about when are people at their best and how can we create that opportunity. And so when I read that, I went, I love this idea. I love my strengths. I can see how they've helped me be me and also how they've frustrated me or even frustrated other people in the past. And so one of my top 5 strengths is communication. Love to talk. So it didn't surprise me that was in my top 5. And also I can recall my grandfather saying, you could talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles. I spent basically year 11 at high school in the hallway because I couldn't shut up for roll call. So my teacher said, just sit out there for roll call for the rest of the year. To even early at Master Foods, I remember we had a quality issue. There's people from all different departments. There's a big discussion about what are we going to do. And I remember leaning in to the meeting and saying something that was completely useless, my reflection now, because everyone just sort of looked at me and went, let's just get back to the real meeting. And I realised it's that communication of I need to be heard, I need to speak up. And so in 2012, when I read that and I really connected with it, it wasn't until 3 years later in 2015 when I said, okay, I want to investigate this more and really understand it. So I went down the path to become certified through Gallup as a CliftonStrengths coach.
So look, now that we've brought up the CliftonStrengths and Strength Finders, I think it'd be a really good opportunity. A lot of people wouldn't know what that actually is. So if you can explain, what is Strength Finders, what is CliftonStrengths and Gallup and how that all works together, but also in relation to other ones, so be it Myers-Briggs or be it whatever else, because there's so many of those things going around now. And I think it's really important for people to understand, why you chose that stream.
Great question. How long have we got? Because I can talk for hours. So first things, my general thought is any tool, any assessment that helps you understand yourself and other people is great. And like you said, there's quite a number of them out there. And thankfully, through my personal development and my career, I've had the chance to do a number of those. So DISC, Myers-Briggs, Team Management Profile, which I'm also certified in, LSI. So there's a whole range and there's others. Where I feel like CliftonStrengths is different is it's a richer, more detailed, personalised report that you get. So when you look at your top 5 or your full 34 report, and I'll explain a bit more about that, the descriptions in your top 5 are personalised for you. So the 3 of us could have one of those top strengths the same, but when we read that report, because of how you've answered all the questions and the way the CliftonStrengths themes interrelate, it's going to be slightly different in the descriptions.
So we've all got like communication as being our, in our top 5, but it'll be a variation of that.
Yeah. So and so there's the richness of that, which is what I love. So a couple of things to help people understand as well. So the assessment was known as Strengths Finder for many years, and then it changed its name to CliftonStrengths in honour of Don Clifton, who is the father of strengths-based psychology and invested all the research to create the assessment. And that happened in the last decade. Through his research, he identified 34 themes when people are at their best. And so one of those themes is communication, and there's another 33, a whole range of those. And those themes can show up as a strength, that natural talent of communication, but it might show up as a strength or it might not, it might show up as a weakness. And that's where, again, the richness is. It's not just, well, you're this color, this code, this thing. There's communication or restorative or analytical or discipline or empathy. And then how does that show up for you, and how can you invest in that to help it become a strength for you?
And I think that was a good example you used in regards to, butting in during the meeting. Obviously, your communication is a strength, but there's ways you can use that are good and ways you can use that are poor.
Yeah, 100%.
And so knowing that and then being able to build upon that is what really can change your life.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's a really good point too, Stephen, is CliftonStrengths is not a work thing. It's a human movement. And the amount of people that I've helped and met and understood and by having conversation about knowing their strengths, that's helped them as a parent, as a as a partner, in how they communicate with all people in their lives. And there's people around the world that are using Clifton Strengths in faith-based organizations, in churches, in organizations, and helping people move through their life, in addiction, whole range of things. Couples counseling. My focus has always been organizations because that's what I know. But I even just last week, someone emailed me after doing their strengths, said, "Hey, can my wife do this? It's going to be so good." I said, "Yes, of course."
Yeah. Matter of fact, it's interesting you say it because my first introduction was actually my daughter, who did that through an organisation. But then her and her boyfriend did it together, and they found that to be very, very insightful to understand each other better and to actually know the good and the bad of where they're going.
I'm having a slight laugh, Steve, because I've had that exact experience where my daughter and her boyfriend are sitting on the lounge, and I'm coming in with a laptop. And she's like, "Dad, don't do this." I said, "Okay, time for you to do your strengths." and my kids and their partners have done it. I wish I did it back then, back in my 20s. And if I knew myself better and my partner at the time, life could have been very different.
It's funny, isn't it? It's finance is a very important part of your life. But, Hamish is a financial planner. But if he sat down with his kids and pulled out a computer and said, "Right, it's time to do your budget," they're going to look at him very strangely. I think it's one of those things. It doesn't matter how important something is. If your parents doing it, it's just not cool.
No. But that doesn't mean we keep trying.
That's right.
100%.
That's right. Exactly.
It's interesting, and there is this richness. So, for those people listening, I've been on this journey trying to work through what it means to build, I guess, a culture around embracing strengths in the organisation. And if you said to me, though, what was the epiphany or that moment that I just went, this is significant, is that sort of age-old story that comes out in the book, which is that, so most organizations you're part of, what happens is you do a performance review, or the only feedback you get is about of what you haven't done well.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about your weaknesses. We want to improve your weaknesses because if we get rid of your weaknesses, then everything will be okay.
Cut them out.
Yep.
Yeah, you'll be okay.
All right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there's almost this, call it, feeling that comes out of the books, or this awareness that says, forget it, it's just impossible to get rid of your weaknesses, and it's not helpful, right? Yes, we've all got weaknesses, but, how do we create a team where people use their strengths to help the team rather than focus on weaknesses?
Totally. And I love the journey you and the team have been on, and think about how do we build that in the culture? How do we help people use their strengths day in, day out? We had the Olympics recently, and I was just saying to a team the other week, you didn't see the person that was throwing the javelin also in the 1500 swim. You think about top sports people, where's those talents lie? Investing in those through coaching, through good, constructive, helpful feedback to harness those talents, turn those into strengths to perform at their best. That's how we want to look at our top strengths. Because then if we're doing that and we have those conversations with our leader that says, "Hey, you're achieving this really well. I need you to achieve this. And how can your strengths help you do that?" Because then we're talking about how people could be at their best. And then when we do that, they're more engaged, they're more productive, companies perform better as well.
And look, using that analogy, I love that analogy about the 50-metre freestyle with the not the medley. What do you call it?
Yeah, the medley.
No, medley's all
the relay.
The relay.
Yeah.
Here are the 4 top 50-metre swimmers in the country, but they all know who's going to be first, second, third, and fourth. And so I love that idea of talking about, if we go back to communication, all 3 of us could have communication as our top strength, but someone could be better at actually talking to the group. Someone could be better at talking to the individual. Someone could be better at talking, it's about actually working that out and going, where is your strength? Then how do you actually take that strength and put it into a team, and go from there?
I love what you're building there. It's the nicheness. Is that a word?
Yeah, totally.
You can have it.
We can have it. We'll add it in.
The nicheness of strengths and their application.
Yes.
Which, again, what the brilliance of this is, I'm seeing the uniqueness of you, not the the paintbrush of you and everyone else.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Because sometimes it's easy to go, you're analytical, you're empathetic, your communication, right, that's your job.
Yeah.
Do you know? And it gets a bit harder when you actually go, hey, we've got two people here that are analytical. Well, hang on, where are they analytical? How do they actually do that? How does it relate? And then also, where's it a blockage? You know what I mean? Like, where does someone who's too analytical and then can't move forward?
Yep.
So hang on, let's not put them in this role. They're better in this role. Do you know?
Yeah, it's great. Yes. Ooh.
And I think what I found interesting, so one of the things that Murray did with us is actually show us as a team how we come together and what the flavours look like, not just as an individual, but as a group. And, and I've only ever seen this done in one industry, which is financial services. So, there's almost this aha moment when you sort of go, yeah, of course. This industry attracts a lot of analytical people, so it makes sense why we're a little bit skewed in one direction. And so you start to think about, what would a hospital look like? Would empathy really show out in a hospital, or different sort of industries and how that sort of comes together?
Is there a strength called burnout for hospital staff? It was funny, like when I was when you guys actually started doing the strength finders as a group, what I actually found interesting was all of your Zoom or Teams backgrounds started changing, and you had your strengths on there. And it was actually really interesting as you're talking to someone to actually see what their strengths were. And then when you're talking to a group of people, as you're saying, like you talk to three people that are from the same industry, you're like, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, some similarities, but then again, the uniqueness. And so to meet someone with the same top 5 CliftonStrengths themes is 1 in 278,256.
Wow.
The same top 5 themes in the same order is 1 in 33 million.
Wow.
And so while there's some real similarities and some themes across industry, and I've picked up on some of those, but then we are all unique.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if we understand that, we can have better conversations. And I love that the display of the CliftonStrengths themes in the background, because then I think it helps people communicate better. Think, I can now see the angle you're coming from through that theme.
Absolutely.
And how I can get prepared. And for me, running my business, and I'll meet with a client, and relator as a number one, I can talk about anything. And the basement of that might be I'm oversharing. And I meet a client and I'm like, they don't need to know about that. I'll just dial that back a bit. I can see that's not what they need. So it helps in having more productive, authentic conversations.
And look, before we move on to other questions, I just wanted to stay with this for a second and ask. So, when it comes to strength finders, when it comes to doing those sort of things, you can go online and do your test. You can read a book and go from there. What's the difference between doing that and actually engaging someone like yourself that has specialised in that has actually taken that on as a career, that has become a professional coach in that area? Like, what do you sort of see as the difference?
Yeah, I'd like to think that what people that do work similar to myself and what I bring is the difference between knowing it and getting it.
Yep.
So you could do an assessment and you could read your report, whatever that might be. You could read a bit of information and you go, yeah, I know that. Mm. But through coaching, whether that's one-on-one or in group setting with teams, it's like now we really get it. What does this really mean for how we apply it? Yeah. And how does it help us actually be more strengths-based, like Hamish is talking about in a culture, and take it to the next level?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I could read about how to play golf, but if I really want to play golf, someone needs to show me and talk me through that and help me do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it all right if I add to that just a little bit? So I think one of the things that I've really found helpful in having a coach talk into it as well is because when you read the information on your own, what happens is you can use your own bias to come up with assumptions about what those things mean.
Yes.
So for example, one of the things that I've found was that, there's 4 sort of overarching themes.
Four domains. 4 domains
they're called, yep. So there's relational, there's execution, analytical, no, it's not called strategic, and influence.
All done.
Right, so
all stars.
Yeah. So and so you make this natural assumption that all salespeople should be strong in influence.
Yes.
All right. So and then one of the brain snap moments I had was Murray saying actually. I think it's Australians tend to rate quite low on influence. Like it's a culture, we don't actually go that we're not naturally in that area a lot, all right? So
You don't want to. It's that tall poppy syndrome, isn't it? You've got to try and pull back on it.
And so that's fascinating in itself, to think that different countries or different cultures will actually have different, that they bring a different flavour to it. All right. But to me, it was then sort of going, oh, okay. So if I'm in sales, which is me personally, and I'm actually not strong in influence, all right. So, there's almost this moment where you sort of go, oh, I must be terrible at sales, or I must be terrible at talking to people, right? And then, so what Murray's comment was, no. What you need to do is just now say, okay, so what are my strengths, and how do I use those strengths to bring the right style to what my role is, all right? So, and I don't think I could have done that without having somebody interpret that information for me or help me challenge my own perceptions around that.
It's funny, like when I had staff and I was doing sales on that subject, I would say to them that there are some people that naturally are good at that, but the people that are really good often aren't the ones that were naturally good at sales. They actually had to learn their strengths. They had to actually work through that and learn how to actually, take their product and explain it to someone and then move them through to the point where the person says, yeah, that's what I want. And so it's interesting, isn't it? Like, I think that there are some things that we're all naturally good at. Everyone has their own area.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that you can't actually take your strengths and then build upon that and become brilliant at something in particular.
Can I throw something on the table around sales?
Well, you are the guest, so you're allowed to do whatever you want, really.
So general sort of idea here. People generally don't like selling and don't like being sold to. And I think people find themselves in sales roles thinking, oh, I need to sell this. I need to sell this. Whereas if we reframe that to, how can I help you achieve your goal, or how can I help you overcome this problem, whatever that may be, whatever the product or the service is, then it's about relationship, getting to know the person, and then how you can help them overcome that challenge or achieve that goal, whatever that might be. So back when I was in a business development role, for me, it was all about the relationship. What's the relationship? And then my responsibility theme helping me make sure I delivered. And that's what helped me. Whereas I think if we think, oh, I've got to be the salesperson, put on my sales armor and off I go, I think the inauthentic delivery of that gets you lost pretty quick.
Yeah. And look, you can take that whether you're an engineer, whether you're a bookkeeper, it doesn't matter what you are. There are some things you're naturally good at, but actually finding out what your strengths were, what your weaknesses are, and then be able to push through those to be able to actually develop them means that you can have a much holistic professional life.
I'm going to put my sister-in-law out here. So here goes. Hi. So my sister-in-law was going for a role a few years ago within the organisation she works at. And she went for the role, wasn't successful. Went for it again, wasn't successful. So she's feeling a bit down. And my father-in-law says, you just need to teach her how to sell herself better. And I went, I don't think that's what's going to help, but thank you. And I said to my sister-in-law, how about you do your strengths? Do your strengths assessment, and then let's have a chat about it.
Your kids all shake their head and go, oh, Dad, here we go again. He's got his computer out.
Basically, yes. My sister-in-law did her CliftonStrengths. Yep. We then talked through the descriptions, how they help her be her, how they help her show up, how they could help her be successful in the next role she went for. What I'm proud to say is it gave her confidence about how she could articulate that in the interview, and she was successful next interview.
It's funny, isn't it? Like interviews and I mean life in general, but actually understanding yourself and being able to articulate that is what actually allows you to go forward. Because someone says to you, "What are you good at?" It's hard to actually to think about it and go, what am I good at? And you just start throwing stuff out. Whereas to actually sit down, take some time, do something like Strength Finders to go, right, these are the things that I'm really good at. These are the things I'm okay at. These are the things that I need to, work on. Yep. It really does help you to not box yourself at all, but to articulate yourself and go, right, this is where I can actually move forward from. It's a bit like that old analogy of, sitting down and sharpening your axe before you start cutting down trees, The guy who gets into the tree straight away compared to the guy who sits down and spends half an hour sharpening will actually end up cutting down more trees in the long run, So I think taking some time away from work, away from your professional life, to do something like this and invest in yourself is what we talk about at Help My Wealth all the time.
Yeah. And I think if we think about the analogy of the iceberg, you can see the tip of the iceberg above the water, and that's who we can all see each other right now. But underneath the surface of that iceberg, underneath the surface of all of us and everyone, is all these beautiful things that make us, which might be your strengths, your childhood experiences, those things your parents taught you when you were growing up, your personal values, your faith, your previous experience, all of that. And the more we understand that, the better we can show up as the beautiful bit of iceberg out of the water.
Well, I think as humans we need it as well. Like it's the obvious, but it's also realizing that we continually, whether it's social media, movies, whatever it happens to be, we see these unachievable pictures that if we're not careful bring us down, don't they? They actually make us feel inferior or insignificant. So that concept of how do we build that confidence? Well, we've got to do that with understanding what makes us unique and strong. So
now on unique, I need to bring up something. When I was reading about you, Murray, before you came on the show, I noticed that you've got many things that you've done coaching and you're certified for this and certified for that. And I came across the certification for Lego Serious Play.
Yes.
Please tell us about it. I mean, I went down a rabbit hole. I had to research it because I was just too interested. But explain to our audience, what does it mean to be a Lego Serious Play certified coach?
Okay. Great question. Thank you. Putting me on the spot, Stephen. I love it. So this is another thing. We didn't have Lego growing up either. So and there are some adults that love Lego.
You've got one bit of Lego and your mum said that's just enough. But you had nothing to connect onto.
Sorry, Mum. But as the kids have grown up and they're younger, we had some Lego and I always loved it. But then I got to learn about what is Lego Serious Play. And where it came about is the actual Lego Corporation were building their strategy as a business internally about where do we go, how do we get there. And my apologies, can't remember exactly who, but at the time, internally, they said, let's use Lego to develop our strategy. And so through doing that, they then developed their strategy and then a whole program around using Lego for more serious applications. And then I got to know a bit about this and then found out about the certification. And it was a course I did around how do you actually use it when you're working in different settings. And so people use it one-on-one or with teams and workshops to really help people articulate things. So best example, and Steve, you asked the question, so I'll ask you, what if I said to you, tell me how you feel? Can you please answer that?
Oh, I'm feeling good.
Great. Generally, that's the top answer people to say. Now, what if you had...
It's a safe answer, isn't it?
It's a safe answer.
You're not great, you're not bad, you're just good.
But imagine you had some Lego in front of you and I said, now build how you feel.
Yeah, you've got to think about it a bit more, don't you?
Yeah. And then what you'll find is you build something and then now tell a story through what you've built and you get this amazing, rich answer.
It's a bit like art therapy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Except I can't paint or draw, so that's okay. But again, because it's Lego, there's no judgment. I've had people use 2 blocks to someone build something big, but it's about then the story and what you bring. And so then in the real application, it could be, let's build our strategy and how we get there. Or let's build what's our current challenge as a team. And then how do we work together? I've used it for people to build the strengths they bring to the team and then talk about it. And so there's lots of applications. The brilliant thing too is the Lego company have made it open source. So you can go down the rabbit hole. You can read about it, find about it, and then learn about it to then start to use it yourself. What it's definitely not is just throwing Lego on a table and people playing with it. There's some real clear questions and application for it when you use it.
And in using that with companies and organisations, have you found that to be obviously helpful for them to be able to, get breakthrough in regards to what they're thinking about? Yeah,
it has been. I'll be honest. It's one of those things that I in my own reflection in this very moment, I'm realising I've sort of let it slip off because, it's one of the tools in the toolkit. It's probably not had the focus as much lately. And it dropped off the focus through COVID because getting everyone to sit around a table and play with Lego and breathe on each other wasn't a thing. But I still love it. I have used it recently, but not as much. But definitely, I still remember we had a project and it was not going well. The team was all frustrated. There was lots of cultural issues around how they're interacting and working. So let's build what success of this project looks like. And then let's now build where we're at now. And then let's talk about the connectors and how we move from current state to future state. And that was great.
I think just getting that, creative side of you into that analytical thing is what's important. Sometimes we get quite analytical, pull up spreadsheets and off we go, and you lose that whole creative side of you. So that Lego thing I thought was quite interesting because it brings that back in and actually gets people to articulate what they're saying, because they've got to explain what they've made.
100%.
You're looking at this mess of Lego and you're like, what is that? And then, the person spends time to actually explain what it is and you're like, wow, that's really insightful.
And it's not just that, it's actually the bringing people to the table to do it. So when we did ours, I think Tammy did it with us. We actually, what I found is it was interesting watching the different personalities go, oh, do I join in? Do I sit back? If I do it, am I going to feel safe? Are people going to like what I'm going to do? It was actually almost good to see some of those walls melt away as people got engaged in it.
And I think as a leader, Hamish, what you do really well is you're looking not just at the direct application, but also what else is going on, what else is bubbling to the surface for my team members, because you're right. I've had similar situation where someone's like, I can't do Lego, I fail at it. I'm like, hang on, we haven't even...
They put two bricks together and go, there, done.
So then that gives you more understanding of your team, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
But see, even that itself, someone who says, I'm not good at Lego, I fail at it, that tells you a lot about that person. Do you know what I mean? They're unwilling to even try to start because of the fear of failure. So you can actually really push forward with that where that is.
And in a safe way, whether it's there or down the track, unpack that and get to know that. Yeah.
Yes. So I've actually got a question for you, Hamish.
Yep.
Because you've done the strength finders, you've done coaching, you've done it with your team. So quite a few people have done it, which gives a different perspective to, asking someone who's the coach. What did you find was probably the best thing, not so much for yourself, but for the team? What sort of changed when people did strength finders?
I think the best thing for me, and look, it's a journey. It doesn't you just don't do it and it finishes, because most of us come to the table that we've almost got these preconceived ideas that have been built up over 20 or 30 years about how do we see the world, ourselves, each other, things like that. So, but what I've really enjoyed is being able to almost, when you get somebody that's possibly building some, let's call it negative thoughts about something. All right. So, then actually asking the question, so have you reflected on what their strengths are? All right. And asked yourself the question, why are they approaching it this way? All right. So, but to actually be able to do that, because I find is most of us have done some sort of personality test on ourselves, but we don't naturally then do it on others and work out how to interpret people. It's around that whole interpretation. And that's what I would say is the ongoing journey, is how do you get people to just almost build into that thinking, wait a second, no, I'm coming up with the way I approach things. They're different. How do I embrace that and work through that?
And that's not an easy thing for people to do, because it's, you always see things from your perspective. It's that whole shoe and the other foot. So did you find when your staff did that staff, not so much the staff had conflict and there was problems, because I know that wasn't why you were doing it, but did you find that staff started to be able to interact better together, that it actually created better productivity? Like, what was the outcome of the outflowing of that?
I'd say it's definitely been the benefit has mainly been around community and culture.
Yep.
All right. So I don't necessarily think I've noticed that it's improved productivity. I think that's be a very hard thing to do. But what I do notice is just people connecting more. And I think the reality is that we can underestimate the impact that the last 5 years has had on all of us from a how do we connect perspective.
Yes.
That in itself, like I would say, definitely over the last 2 or 3 years, we've gone from having a real, just leave me in my corner almost type philosophy, and it's not deliberate. People
Leave me
don't
at
say
home,
that.
at home in my office, and I'll Zoom you.
Yeah, absolutely. To how do I ask the other person for help, and how do I bring the team in, with this assumption that two heads are better than one, and things like that.
So I challenge you on that with the productivity, because I think that one of the things that we forget is how important staff retention and staff happiness and staff wellbeing is. And having to get new people in all the time and retrain them and go through that really, affects productivity. So it is hard. I agree with you to go, we've gone from selling 4 widgets to 8 widgets. That's hard. But what isn't hard is to go, actually, I think my staff are happier. I think they're getting along better. I think we've got a better culture here. I think people are less likely to leave. Do you know what I mean? That in itself increases productivity.
Yeah.
It does. It's just too early to tell.
Yeah.
All right. So because if we think about it, like I would say prior to COVID, I think our average tenure was between 6 and 7 years. And then during COVID, and especially financial services, there was a lot of turnover, people moving organisations, shortage of staff, things like that. And so now, we're 2 to 3 years outside of COVID. So it's going to take time for that for me to see that. And that's what I think I'm saying. The culture's improved, the connectivity's improved, and I would expect over time our tenure should hopefully improve and get back to either where we were or better. But I can't measure that yet. So
the other word when you talk through that, I think was, or 2 words, appreciation and curiosity. Appreciating where someone's coming from. I'm seeing their approach through a lens of their strengths, not my own. And I want to be a bit curious about that. And I think that is powerful. So if we've got more and more of that happening, then we've got that connection.
Yeah.
So just as an interesting thing with that curiosity, and what was the second word? Sorry? Appreciation. So appreciation. I've realised that my favourite strength, right, is not one of my own, right?
It's mine, isn't it? Thank you. I'll accept that award today.
I'll accept the appreciation. Hamish, thank you. Yes.
So it's harmony.
Right. It's not your strength.
No, but I've got 2 staff that have got a top 5 strength of harmony, and I just had such an epiphany when I realised that they were both harmonic people. All right, so not only did I go yes, but what I've realised is how much of a calming influence they can have in the office.
Did you move them so they were not together but like amongst everybody else?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have, yes. I didn't know it at the time, but I have, yes.
So look, one of the questions that I wanted to bring to you was like mentoring and coaching is something that at Help My Wife we talk about all the time. It's a big thing for us because that's what we do. We do money coaching, and that's sort of really getting people to understand the basic foundations of money and budgeting and how to actually step forward from that. So for yourself, being a coach, and that's being your full-time job, and it's it's what you do. What do you see as the benefit for coaching?
So I think for me, the way I think about mentoring and coaching, one is mentoring, you're passing on your knowledge, your insights, whereas coaching, you're unlocking potential. To be honest, I've had a couple of mentors in my career where, Paul Macklin being one of those, which ran the training company I worked for in the past. And the knowledge, the fast track of insights that I got from him as a mentor was just, I can never be thankful enough for that. Whereas a coach helping, hold the mirror up to me to say, this is what is going to help you move forward, or helping me find that way forward. It's been powerful over my career at different times to have coaches. The thing I'm also really thankful for is people that do work similar to me. We have co-coaching relationships where they'll coach me, I'll coach them. But what's worked well when we've done that is we've actually got some really good ground rules. Whereas sometimes maybe it's been more of a chat. So it hasn't been a good coaching protocol in place. But definitely for coaching around that accountability, helping you explore options and find the way forward, I found it has been, great for my business. And I wish I had it when I was back in my career in organizations where I had that coach. And as much as I think a lot of organizations develop coaching skills, building a coaching culture where more managers or leaders or people just have that in their toolkit would be better. Because here's the thing, I think quite often people want to help solve people's problems, so they tell them what to do. Whereas telling is not the answer. It is the actual helping them find the best way forward and then holding them accountable and supporting them to do that.
Yeah. I think it's almost making it their idea.
Oh,
isn't
it is.
You can tell someone what to do, they're not going to do it.
No.
But if it becomes their idea, they are on board. They've got buy-in. Yeah. So look, if you had to think of an example without using names and so forth of people that you've taken from position A to position B, is there anything like that you can share with us?
I had one recently, which and maybe you two might relate to this. I hope. Where sometimes you don't know the impact you make in people's lives. And just in the last month I got this message, and it was a photo of this gentleman talking at his daughter's wedding. And he said, I couldn't have stood at the front of my daughter's wedding and talked today with the confidence if we didn't do the programs we did. And the programs we had done, he works for a large organisation, was around how do you present effectively at a meeting, and how do you facilitate an effective start of shift toolbox? How does your strengths help you do that, plus some other skills around communicating? And that was all organisationally, and he's this person that's now got more confidence and capability to facilitate meetings and present in sort of large organisation. But here's this message where he's able to talk at his daughter's wedding, and I'm like, oh, love what I do.
Yeah, okay, that's good. And you're right. Quite often, all we are is a piece in the puzzle, each of us, in terms of how somebody gets to where their destination is.
Yep.
Sounds like what he's done well is just remain humble and teachable and stay on the journey.
Yeah, and I'd like to think whether it's the things that you talk about with your clients and the work that you do, or the journey people go on within an organisation or that I work with, that they can take that on board and apply that in all parts of their life. And I think there's just so much richness, particularly, if you work in your organisation, Hamish, and you get the chance to understand communication or strengths or teamwork or budgeting, whatever it might be. Okay, how can I apply that in my personal life to be just more of me and, achieving the success that they want?
So the journey of self-employment, have you enjoyed it?
I have. It's funny. I've been asked this before, and I do say to people, it wasn't like I woke up one morning and went, hey, I'm going to do this. I do, the way I think about it, there was pterodactyls flying around in my stomach. It wasn't butterflies. They were big flapping pterodactyls. And I was like, I want to do this. I don't. It's going to become certified through Gallup, cost close to $10,000 to be a CliftonStrengths coach. For me, it was also a time of mortgage and child maintenance at the time, and bills and all of that. But I still remember my two older kids and my wife saying, "What are you doing? Stop overthinking this. You've got this." And so I couldn't have done it without their support and encouragement, and also from a couple of close friends. And then just getting really clear as in the journey of, okay, how do I do more and more of what I like? I think when I first started, it was like say yes to everything because, get a feel for that, but then do more and more of what I like and what fills me up, what I'm passionate about. The thought of going back to a full-time job, working somewhere every day, traveling in the car, turning up at the office.
You get the pterodactyls back.
Oh, there's no way. I could not do that. No. I love what I do, and I also love the flexibility. And I think that's something which I don't take for granted, that I might one day during the week ride my bike during the week, but then on the weekend I'll do a bit of work because I want to, because I love what I do. I think that flexibility I absolutely love. Yeah.
And if somebody younger came to you today, it could be a younger version of Murray, or it could be somebody else that just said, hey, I'm thinking of going into business. What's, 2 or 3 things that you've really learnt that you can impart to me that might help my journey?
I would say it's about relationships. So building relationships with people that can help you, building relationships with your clients. It is about the people. So don't lose sight of that. Second thing is be strengths-based. And what I mean by that is, of course, we've talked about the CliftonStrengths, but also I have a bookkeeper. So why? I have someone that helps me with social media. And so there's so many options and ways to support you out there to think about where are you going to be at your best, because the bit that you don't like to do or that doesn't, the bit you don't like doing or the bit that doesn't fill you up, someone out there loves doing that. Find out who that is and then partner up with them. So be strengths-based in that approach, be clear on that. It's about the relationships. And the third thing is jump in there with both feet and give it a try, because just like I've been asked, would you go back? There's so much opportunities out there. And for the type of work I do, I feel like there's so much opportunity out there to help people in the spaces we all play in. I think there's so much opportunity out there to help people if you come with the right intent. Again, we're not selling to them. We want to help people, and there's just so much opportunity out there. So jump in there and give it a go.
Great.
Yeah. Sorry. And on that, I think it is important. Like, I'm the first one that used the word sales. All right. So, but we live in a world now where, to negotiate, to communicate, to project a viewpoint is just so important, isn't it? So, it's, 50 years ago, what somebody said was selling, right, is, very different to this concept of what it means to express a view or a way forward. So, yeah. Sorry, Steve.
No, I was going to say one of the things we always ask all of our guests that come here is if you could go back and talk to your 18-year-old self, what advice would you give him?
Because we're on the Money Rules or Money Rules podcast, I thought about this. And honestly, I think something that would have set me up better for the future, and that is diversify.
Yes.
And so it's something which I still am learning about, but people I know that have managed that risk and managed the income. And so diversify where you're investing your money. And so I wish I did that. So if I think about the mindset for me back at that time, get a job and that was it. Never thought of buying a property, never to rent, or never thought about buying shares or anything else. And because I think it was that very mindset that I got off my parents of, you get a full-time job, you buy a house, and that's it. And you've got your block of land. So I'd say that diversify is one that really jumps out to me. And I'm not the person to give that advice. Clearly, I'm not. The second thing would be I didn't have a lot of confidence, I think, until I got to my 30s. And there's we don't have the time for that today, but there's reasons for that. But certainly just be a bit kinder to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's amazing how often the be kinder to yourself comes up when we ask people this question. Yeah. I think I would say it's a very high percentage of people that have actually said, I was too hard on myself. I wasn't confident enough. I was too hard. I didn't think I could do it. But being okay with that. Yeah. Being okay with where you're at and knowing that over time things change and you grow and you get better. And so it's quite a common answer.
Yeah, I think so. Therefore, the more we do it, the more we talk about it like this, the better it is. Yeah.
So the other question we always ask is, if you're going to write a book, what would it be about and what would the title be?
So I'm playing with a few books at the moment.
Oh, these are real?
Yeah, real. So thank you. If you just go to
murraygets.com.
No, honestly, the one that I think relates so much to what we're talking about today, and that is who I am, it would be the conversations I've had and the conversations I haven't had or I didn't have. Because I'm a big believer around conversations like this and with our people in our lives. And for me, I can think about the impact that's had and the trajectory in my life and with others. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And I think maybe the conversations you didn't have are sometimes the more important ones, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to reflect on that all night. Yeah. I think that's quite powerful. So
tomorrow he's going to call me.
Do not steal my book title.
No, tomorrow he'll call me and he'll say, there's a conversation we haven't had. And I think it's time.
Good.
Well, look, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you coming on the show and really appreciate hearing about you and your work and where you've been. Thank you.
Stephen, thank you. Hamish, thank you. Really loved the chat, loved the way we had the chance to connect, and wonderful flowing conversation. Really, really appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you.
So guys, this is a Money Rules podcast for Help My Wealth, and we're all about empowering your financial future. And today we've done that by talking to Murray Guest. I hope that's been as good for you as it has been for Hamish and I, and we'll see you all again next time. So thank you and bye for now.
Bye.
The information discussed by the Help My Wealth and the Money Rules podcast is for education and entertainment purposes only and is general in nature, and it is not advice. It is not intended as a substitute for professional finance, legal or tax advice. It is aimed to provide a general understanding of each topic and should not be relied upon to make an investment or financial decision. It is strongly suggested that you seek professional advice regarding your own individual circumstances before making a financial decision. Help My Wealth and the hosts of the Money Rules and Money Rules podcast are not aware of your personal financial circumstances. Before making any financial decisions, you should read the product disclosure statement and, if necessary, consult a licensed financial professional. Do not take financial advice from a podcast. In the spirit of reconciliation, Help My Wealth and the Money Rules or Money Rules podcasts acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to past, present and emerging elders. We extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today.